Hello, I'm Otto, and welcome to episode 44 of my Factorio Space Age guide. So in the last episode, we created a large train hub for supplying our bus. This is more train stations than we need, probably about by two. We needed like 14. We have some extras to spare. We have lots of stacker space. If we need more, we can always add, like we have plenty of room here to add more if needed. The nice part about this is that we can reuse this if we ever decide that 1x2 trains is not enough. This will fit a 1x4, both the stacker and the train station drop-off sections. So in this episode, we have quite a few things to cover. So let's just jump into it. So we're gonna make a stacker. We're gonna use our straight rail, and unlike the other print, we are not going to make this in a way that fits the 1x4 train. So we're just going to make, we're going to line these up until we get some straight lines. You definitely don't want any of the curves, any of the weird curves like this. It needs to be as straight as possible. So then we're going to give it a rail signal at the bottom coming in. We're going to extend one out, and we are going to add a chain signal at some point where we have 3 white boxes. So that is going to be right here, and that is going to be the length that we need. This can then curve in like that. Then the rest of these can get a chain signal. Why did that shouldn't have been... Whatever, as long as it fits a 1x3 then, or a 1x2, then we're fine. Okay, so then all of these need to then come up and line up here. So I'm going to point the arrow to the top and drag that into a nice corner. We usually want them to line up with the middle of the Roboport, so here is fine. We are going to make an exception on the other side though. It's going to be a little funny when we start bringing in our elevated rails. We need somewhere for the trains. So the trains will come in from this direction, up into the stacker, and then around into whatever we need them to do up here. And then they will exit out on this side. So we need to have a way for them to exit. So normally I would have something like this for them to exit this way. We are not going to do that, however. We are going to take full advantage of our elevated rails like we did in the last blueprint. So I'm going to have some elevated rails, and we are going to have them as close to the rail signal as we can. And we put them here last time for the last blueprint. We're going to push this in by 1. So that is where this will be. Let's get that connected in the earliest possible spot. There. Okay, now for the fun part. This is going to be a little rough. Like, elevated rails do not play nice, and this is not an exception to that. So we need to make sure that we get around this power tower. The power tower that we generally, like, we're using a city block that has the power towers on the south side. And when we created the city block, I mentioned that we don't want this to be rotatable. But we want the train prints to be rotatable. So since we're not rotating the city block blueprint, we need the trains to be able to fit no matter which direction it might be, like the power pole might be. So I put power poles on all 4 sides. So as long as we fit within a Roboport and 4 power poles, then we should be good to go. So we're going to need somewhere for them to ramp up to. That should not be there. So if we're holding shift, we're going to aim towards the top, and we're going to hit G, not T. Wow. And then come out with the best straight line that we can, or the best curves that we can, and that is going to be here. And you can see that the ramp leading into, or coming in from this direction, is going to be that's going to be recessed one space into, like one train rail space into that city block up here. So we're going to have to accept that. Okay, now as for coming back this way, these can be really, really finicky, so we're going to try to set this up in a way that will allow us to do... I think I want to start from this side, actually. And as you can see, it is going to be really difficult to get this to do exactly what we want, because if I were to place this here, I don't like the way that this curve looks. So I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to use this guy and see if I can line this up better. That's a little bit better, but this isn't going to work because it's not going to allow us to place that one here. That one's a maybe. And that was a definitely no. Okay, so let's see if we can move this one out. Maybe this will work? Sure. That's still going to connect? Yes, it is. That's better. Okay, well, let's see how that works with this one. This one is also going to be painful because this is... Actually, that's probably fine. I don't think that I could make that curve any tighter by doing the same thing here. Yeah, no. Okay, so that will be fine. And when you're using the elevated rails, so using the ones on the ground, you can generally tell if something is not going to work. Hold on, let me replicate some nasty. So you can see the little piece hanging out here. So that's kind of the indicator that something's not right. It needs to be flush. With the elevated rails, let me do the same thing, see if I can maybe replicate something here. There is kind of a similar indicator. I honestly don't know if I can even start to replicate this. That would be fine. All right. So what it would look like if it was like I'm gonna have a hard time replicating this. It would look like a broken rail. So you would have like this weird gap in here like this. Like this one in particular would still be fine. But if it looks like the rail is, like the railing on it is broken, then you know that it's not connected properly. Can I even... Alright, okay. I can't even like accidentally do it wrong. Alright. Moving right along. Okay, so similar to before, once we get to the rail signal here, we only want to use rail signals until we get into the next section of the blueprint. And we definitely want some signals coming out. So we want rail signal there and there for the merger into the lane. And we probably want to break this up a bit too. So we will do that for now. Maybe have one, we'll have one on the other side, any kind of blueprints that we have over there. Yeah, we can have one at the top of the ramp, that's fine. Okay, and that is going to be our stacker blueprint. So we're going to copy this. Let me move these up because we're going to need some extra space. And I did not name this one. Train hub? Sure. Four car stacker, sure. We need this to snap to grid. We're going to snap it to the same grid, 96 and 96. Absolute and absolute. We are going to remove the big electric power poles and the Roboports. If you did have big electric power poles that you wanted to keep inside one of these blueprints, you would probably just have to manually remove them. Or if you wanted, after, like before you save this, you could add back in the ones that you wanted to keep, or right click the ones that you don't want to keep. So that's one option. And then the little red flag, you can't really see it, but we want that to be kind of central in between the two, in the middle of the straight rails. So that should work there. So we are going to remove all of this. I have a deconstruction planner set up to remove the train items. So now we can take the stacker and make sure that it works, and it looks like it is going to work perfectly. So if we had our city blocks down here, you can see that no matter which direction we flip this, it is going to be fine, and we can place it wherever. Nice. Okay, so that is one part done. So now if we had the stacker, we need to work on, well, what happens up here. So I kind of toyed around with a couple of things. Normally what I would do would be something kind of like this. And then I would put a train station like somewhere in the middle. Try to maybe keep it somewhat centralized with the 3 or 5 or whatever the case may be. I think we're going to do it a little different. So I'm going to take this and we're going to copy that and give ourselves enough room to work. That may or may not be enough room to work. I don't know. We'll see. We can adjust it if we need to. And we are going to split it somewhere in the middle. Let me just use this to line up. So that is going to be our middle right there. Did I really aim that far out? Jeez. Okay, so that'll work. I don't know how far back I need to peel these, but whatever I do on one side, I need to do on the other side. So let's allow this to cross over down here. And we're going to try to have the crossover match where this piece is. Where the... And that is right in the middle. Perfect. And we can remove these. So I think this is how this is going to work out. So whenever I mentioned when we were making the train hub in the last episode that I had a plan on how this was going to work out, and it turns out I didn't really think it through. I just kind of like dabbled a little bit with a plan. This is actually what I was thinking about. I was going to take something like this and have like multiple rows and stacks and have the ability for trains to come in and like a train here, train here, train here, train here. And then I thought about it and I was like, wait a minute, these can't leave. Like what am I doing? Even with this, like, I could have just been like, you know what? Why don't we just make 2 lines? Whatever. I could have had like a train here and a train here and all this been just its own little line. You know what? We're here to mess around. We're here to have fun. So let's set this up. That's just barely, that's barely gonna work. Now the question is, do I even like that? Well, if I didn't like it, let's say that I don't, because I kind of don't, we would need to cut this and bring it down a little bit. Same with this guy over here. Bring this down slightly. Still not sure if I like that either, but let's see how that works out. Okay, that's a lot more straight, at least. Yeah, I guess I'm maybe fine with that. So we would need a chain here and a chain here. These would both need a rail signal at the entrance. Why are you guys saying all no? This should have allowed for... Oh, because this is all the same. Okay, so let's do like that. I can just toss one down here. Okay, see, there you go. That's why we test things. This is all going to be the same as well. So if I had a train here, this would not allow this train to leave. So I do need to break this one up too. So let's give ourselves a little break there. Okay, I am actually happy with that. For the most part, like it'll be fine. So this is going to be where our supplies come in. We'll have to dodge the Roboports and big electric power poles, but you know what? That's okay. So the train would be here. The cargo wagons would be here and here. If you... Okay, this is a very common mistake that I see. A lot of people will go, oh, okay, look. We have that lined up with the cargo wagon. The problem is you actually didn't. So if you're lining it up with your cargo wagons, make sure that you like really, really get in there. And these were all supposed to be in this direction. We are going to give a little bit of a buffer. We're going to give them power. And they would need to bring in materials in one way or another. So we would use a belt balancer for that. We would bring in a 1, 2, 6. We're going to remove the front. We're going to cut, not copy. And that would be, oof, rip. Well, we have, okay, this is why we test things. That's way better. All right, and then materials could come in this way, and materials could come in this way for this guy. Let's test this one and make sure that this one's also going to work. We can just copy all of that, and so we're going to paste this in. We're going to remove this section here. We're going to actually flip all of this, see if this can fit a little bit better. The answer to that is definitely no. Okay, so I would need to shift this one to the right by 1. I don't think that we have the room for that. Even going left would not work out, because that is going to get in the way of... Alright, let's see if this will work. I don't think that's going to give us enough room. Well, this is a problem. I really don't want this to get in the way. Okay, so good thing that again, it's a good thing we test these things, right? So I'm going to remove all of this. We're going to see if we can maybe bring this one down. That's a tough sell. Okay, let's try it one more time. Can we even signal this one? Oof, just barely. All right. Train station. Hey, we got there. How about that? And then if we needed, we could just hop these like that. And so that'll be good to go. Same thing over here. We would just hop Roboport. Not there. Well, let's pretend that this wasn't there. Now let's pretend it is, because you never know what kind of space you're going to need. So yeah, all right, we can make that work. This will be good. Okay, so we're going to remove anything that we don't want. We want that to be there. We need to break apart. We need a signal right after the train stations. Okay, so that is its own. That is separate. Okay, that's good enough for me. So we are going to copy from the top of this to kind of cover like the whole section. And we're going to add this to our blueprints, and we can edit some of the stuff. Big electric power pole's gone. Roboport's gone. I'm going to remove this as well. We don't need that in here. So I'm going to save it. We're just going to cut off these ends. I should have left that as like a straight. I'll tell you what, let's adjust that. Create new blueprint, and I guess I don't need to do the whole thing. Okay, so now we need to snap this to grid. We're going to do the same thing, 96 by 96, absolute 0, 0. So instead of trying to figure out, okay, well, like, where does this need to be? Which would be, I don't know. Let's just say something like that. So instead of trying to figure that out, yeah, you can see it didn't work. We can actually go into the world and hold shift and use the arrow keys to shift that blueprint around. And then it will automatically save those positions for us. So now we can just test it out. Large city block. Actually, we're going to need a couple. You would need a stacker. And then the unnamed print that we don't have yet, or that we haven't named yet. Oh. Probably should just, I mean, this one's fine being here with this one, but we could add another one here if we wanted to do something different. Okay, so that's going to line up. Rotate, rotate, rotate. It's going to work perfectly fine within our city block blueprint. Okay, so that is a large portion of what we needed to do for this episode. We are 27 minutes in. We do still have some things to do though, so let's clear some of this out. Okay, so what else do we need to do? We need to get some specific blueprints. So let's say that we had a situation where, you know what, we have an end of a city block rail, and we need a way for the train to get from here to here. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a roundabout. And I'm going to shift and wrap that right back into itself. We need to remove the tip that we just placed. And we need to aim, this makes it really easy. We're going to aim for the middle of this city block here. That should be it. And then we're going to continue this one down until we find, I don't like how it does this. No! That's the one it tries to create, but you can get one nice, clean section in there. We're going to vertically flip, do the same thing over here. We're not going to need the full roundabout, so we can just remove these sections. So we just want the end of it. We can maybe break up, break this up a little bit. Find wherever the center is. That's not the center. Yep, close enough to me. There, okay, so we're gonna use that as a blueprint. We might end up using this one. Like I said, it's really good to kind of just like end your train print so you don't just like endlessly try to, reconnect the whole like block of like a whole giant rectangle of trains, and every time you leave an open, I gotta figure out how to connect this back into the line. Let's just have an endpoint and call it that. We're removing all of these again. Save, go back in. We need to snap to grid 96 by 96. All right, well, there we go. And I gotta name all of these at some point too. I don't know. We'll just leave it unnamed for now. Well, I guess this one can just be mining outpost. Works for me. Okay, there's one last thing that I want to do. So we have a situation where, or we will have a situation, I'm guessing, where our train hub we will have straight rails coming out. And same thing, we're going to need trains to be able to get to this stacker. So we want to be able to make a section with a roundabout or some way for them to loop back in that they can get to here if they're coming in from this direction. So we need them to be able to quickly and easily get back into this. So we are going to make a roundabout, an elevated roundabout right here, basically purely just for this. Like we could use it in other areas as well. If you had like a stacker situation and you were like, okay, well, I need something to go back through here. You would have, we're going to make this so that it has to be a straight rail in the piece in the section behind it. So, and then if you had a situation where you had to have two stackers or multiple stackers, then you would have to then have a straight section behind that so that trains could then loop back around to get into any one of these three. So we're going to make that here. We've already made this kind of roundabout before, so we are going to just do the same thing. Boom. Done. And then we're going to line it up within the middle of our city block, our straight rail print. And it will need to be able to go up the ramp and down the ramp. How did I do this before? You know what? We can probably just use this as a guideline. It really is easier to just come in from this direction. That is not where I wanted that to be, though. Excuse me. This is exactly what I... Okay, there you go. That's what I was talking about earlier. You can see that the railing is broken, and whenever I remove it, the railing is now complete. We're going to hit G. Wow. It is so easy for me to hit T. No, no, no. Rotate back. Oh, geez. So we're going to do that there. Whew. All right. And then we need them to be able to merge together here, merge together over here. We need to break up this city block a little bit. So we're going to put some chain rail signals on the top. And we're going to put a chain down here at the bottom of each of these ramps too, just to kind of, where did I just put that? Just kind of break it up a little bit. Okay, and there you go. That is our, I believe that's our final one for now. Snap to grid, 96 by 96. We're going to grab this and move the flag into the middle, save, make sure it works. It's going to work. That's okay. These didn't need to be lined up anyways. And one thing that we need to keep in mind is that these train stops are not named. Lord Rob and Micro Steve. Nice. I love the quote-unquote random names. So there you go. We have, this is, I believe, everything that we will need for our, Nauvis rails. We will probably make more rails because we will need different ones on, I would say, most of the planets that we're going to be on, especially Fulgora. Fulgora is like practically all elevated rails. And there's some other fun stuff that you can do with elevated rails too, but like I was doing some testing and I was like, okay, well, I know that there's some machines that you can fit like in, like underneath. So like let's do this in map view. It's a little bit easier to find what we need. I was like, okay, so you can fit these under. So you could make a build like under the rails. But I'm like, the power towers don't fit though. What else does fit? Well, the other power towers fit. So I was just kind of going through and testing, okay, well, what all does fit? And some of the ones that I found, I'd never really dabbled with this before. So the oil refinery doesn't fit. The Roboport doesn't fit. I do not have access to everything here. Oh, come on. I still don't have access to everything? Bro, what is this? Okay, so let me just run through some of the things that I did have. Okay, there we go. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. So the refinery, sorry, wow, the foundry works. The big electric mining drills work. The oil refineries don't work. The lightning collectors don't work, which we can't place because we're not on the proper planet. Heating tower works. The agriculture tower for Gleba does not work. Everything else, the nuclear reactor, the fusion reactor, all of this stuff works. Only the big electric power pole doesn't work. What else? Oh, some of these. The rocket silo does not work. The cargo landing pad does not work. The radar works. All of these work. Yeah, so it was kind of interesting to go through and see like what works and what doesn't. Yeah, everything else worked. Okay, so let's save this and jump back into our world and see where we can use some of this. So right away, we're going to be taking this guy and stamping that down here. Get the bots to start working on that. We're 39 minutes into this, so I think in the next episode, we're going to set up the train stuff. Okay, so we have, I think I explained this in one of the other episodes. We do have a couple things to do. Some of it's going to be a little boring before we leave Nauvis, but I'm going to try to either skip through or speed up as much as I can. I don't know how much of that I'm going to actually be able to do. Okay, funny little story. Every time I come into my world in Editor, I come over here and remove these and completely forget that, you know what, I can just maybe one episode remember to remove these. I don't know why I did the ones that have an X on them, but whatever. Yay, finally remembered. Okay, that's the last time we're going to deal with efficiency modules. Sorry, inside the miners. By the time the pollution spreads out past our safety, our comfort zone, we will have walls up. So we've got to eventually wall off the base. We're going to wall off up here. We're going to wall off over here, wall off down here, and then figure something out over here, because I do need to actually get to some of these resources. So I might have to fight off some biters and have a much larger wall than I would have preferred. The alternative is I don't wall off here and I wall off here instead, and then have outposts that I will then wall off, which is another option. That's actually a pretty popular one, since you don't have to like wall off this massive section to be able to collect resources. You just wall in what you've got at good choke points, let's say. So here, 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 and then we would do something like here, and then you would just allow trains to go in and out, gates, whatever you need, and then if you had an outpost over here, you would just wall off that outpost instead. But yeah, we're gonna play around with some of that. We also need to make, we have one more build that we have to make. Well, it's kind of 4 builds, but we're gonna make a module setup. We don't need a lot of modules, but it's really nice to have some with you. We will end up making a build that will make us the rank 2 speed modules, efficiency modules, productivity modules, and quality modules. The quality modules will be nice to have earlier, because these, let's see, it's taking us from 1% per to 2% per, which will be nice. And some of the buildings that we don't have access to yet have extra module slots, so that means extra potential quality. So we're going from like a 2% chance in some cases to like an 8% chance in some cases, or higher. Yeah, so we're going to be making some some modules out here. Again, we don't need a lot. It's just whatever like minor amount that we might need to beef up some of the stuff around here. So upgrading some of these rank 1s to rank 2s. And then bringing stuff with us. It's actually better. It's generally better to make the qualities on different planets. You have to, for instance, make the, well, I guess I don't know if you really have to, but the speed modules as an example, like it needs tungsten carbide, so it's probably just better just to make that on Volcanus, and that is a Volcanus item. Quality modules, you need superconductors. Superconductors need holmium plate, and holmium plate is exclusive to Fulgora. Let's get back to, okay, over here. Productivity needs spider's eggs, which is why we have held on to this guy, and we're going to be walling him off as well. This one can be destroyed, but this one we're going to keep. What else was there? Efficiency needs spoilage. The only way that I can think of quickly off the top of my head to get spoilage on Nauvis is to go collect fish. We're not going to go collect fish. I think that's maybe the only way. There's probably some easy solution that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head. Anyways, that is going to be it for this episode. In the next episode, we definitely need to get some trains going. We are really, really slacking over here. And on top of that, we've been having, like, I haven't really had that much of a focus on it, but we've been having a pretty good iron issue for basically the last, like, 10 episodes or so. And I've been completely holding off on adding these at all. So we are definitely going to need that now, along with, beefing up what we have here. We're going to be upgrading a lot of our stuff, upgrading the belts, upgrading the assemblers. Yeah, we have, like I said, a lot of stuff that we still need to do, but I probably only have a few episodes left for Nauvis before we end up going to Volcanus, before we end up making a mobile space platform. Yeah, and I really like to show my work, but I think that some of that is going to get cut out. I will kind of explained what we're going to do. Maybe I'll cut over. I don't like the idea of doing that, but at the same time, I really don't want this to be like too boring for you guys. So anyways, I'm going to end it there. That is going to be it for this episode. Like I said, in the next episode, we are going to try to set up some train stuff, get some of this going, maybe set up another outpost or two. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Anyways, I will see you in the next one, and thanks for watching.